All right, so last night was the perfect example of how you beat a superstar quarterback when you're the road team. Detroit dominates time of possession. They're aggressive on fourth down. They convert in the red zone. No field goals. We're getting touchdowns. They bullied the home Ravens for 3.5 hours. Super aggressive. And you think of Baltimore as tough and physical and resilient. Now, this defense is just as soft as the Dallas Cowboys defense. Baltimore's last in total defense. They surrender a ton of yards. I don't want to hear about the pass rushers they were missing. That wasn't about pass rushing last night. They invested a lot of money in Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, their top 2 draft picks. They got over $100 million on defense, and they're soft. And by week 4 and 5 in the NFL season, we're getting to be a quarter of the way through it. Some of your problems you can't solve unless at the trading deadline you take a big swing. So this was 3.5 hours of total domination. It may have been 38-30. It felt like 48-17. And here's the weird thing, is that Lamar Jackson is so explosive that when he does lead a scoring drive, it's often very quick. So they send that crappy defense back on the field. They don't get any rest. So the Ravens, bizarrely, have the second fewest plays per drive in the league and the number 1 total offense. So they don't play complementary football. And if you look at the last 10 Super Bowls, which is 20 total teams, there's been one awful defense, Atlanta. What happened to Atlanta in that Super Bowl? They blew a huge lead. You're not a Super Bowl team with that defense. So the Ravens have a huge dilemma, which I don't know if it's solvable, is that they score because they're so dynamic with Lamar Jackson. He's so gifted. They score quickly, and then the defense doesn't get a rest. It goes right back onto the field. It's not complementary football. Like last year, the Lions defense stunk. But the Lions were number 2 in the league last year in time of possession. So at least they kept their average defense on the sidelines, and they won 15 games. That's not what Baltimore does. Plus, they got a Derrick Henry fumbles in imperfect times issue. So, and again, by week 4, week 5, you kind of know what your issues are. I mean, the Lions had 96-yard drive and 70-yard drive and 98-yard drive and 60-yard drive. They did whatever they wanted to do. And if you look at the Baltimore game, their defense against Detroit last night, and the Ravens' defense against Buffalo, combined, those 2 games, they only forced those teams to punt 3 times. 3 times out of 13 total possessions. So I went this morning and looked at the Ravens' defense, their NFL rank, they're last, 30th, 31st, and everything. Yeah, they were missing a couple pass rushers. That wasn't about pass rush. Detroit was in control. I mean, by the third quarter, every time Baltimore sent that defense out to make a stop, they couldn't. So the Ray Lewis, Ed Reed days are over. This defense doesn't do a lot well. They've spent money on it, and bizarrely, they score too quickly. If you are weak defensively, we've talked about this a lot. Like one of the issues Kansas City has, they have no run game. So their defense is good, but it looks worn down in the second half. Well, Ravens defense looks worn down in the first half. And again, Lamar is so explosive that that defense is on the field way too many snaps. And John Harbaugh saw the same thing we did. So, again, when you get to this point of the season, the trade deadline's up, in about 3 weeks? Rams may need a corner. Ravens have to figure out something defensively. Now, they will have pass rushers return, which could help them in close games late if they have a lead. But right now, this defense is just not good, and they've invested in it, and it was a major problem last night. Let's talk Lions. Let's give them some credit. So there's a big difference. It's a fine line, but there is a difference between stubborn guy and guy who has a very strong self-belief. And I initially thought Dan Campbell was a little stubborn when he would always go for it on fourth because I didn't like their personnel. But now that they have really good personnel, he's self-belief guy. He's never wavered on what he does. He's go for it guy. When they went for it with a $1:56 left in the fourth quarter, 4th and 2, and despite the fact they'd run at will on Baltimore and they throw it downfield, that is self-belief. that is believing in your dudes. And they should. Again, I thought Dan was reckless in his first couple of years because going forward on fourth down with average players is dumb. Detroit drafts really well. They got a great front office. Going for it last night, I would have run. I think we all thought they were going to run. But on the two big fourth downs, the one at the goal line, kind of the double pitch, and then they throw it over the top. So, I mean, that was really clever. Both of those caught you off guard. They don't have a tush push, and yet the last 3 years, they're number one in the league on fourth down conversions. They don't have a tush push. They have a Goff hands it off, give it to Gibbs, but they don't have a tush push. So again, there's a fine line between stubborn guy and, hey, I believe in what we are. And Dan Campbell took over a very flimsy franchise. The Lions always had talent. Barry Sanders, Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson. They always had talent. They had no identity. And so Dan came into a fault and said, we're going to be tough, relentless, and physical, and super aggressive. And again, I was like, I don't know. But going forward on fourth down, it's got a Jim Harbaugh feel to it. It's completely authentic, and he's not wavering. This is who he is, home or away, good team or bad. He's going to go for it. If you look at the best teams in this league, you almost never ask, what are they? Like the Chargers and Harbaugh, what are they? Physical, aggressive. What are the Lions? You have never asked with Dan Campbell, like, what are they? They've had bad stretches. They've had bad defenses. You always know what they are. They are hyper-aggressive. In the best days of the Ravens when they were winning Super Bowls, they were physical. You didn't want to play the Ravens. Like the Patriots would go into games. Tom Brady said it. Yeah, I didn't really love playing those teams. Those teams, you felt you were sore the next 3 days. And that's a big part, like the tush push. The Eagles, you never doubt what they are. And there's a lot of talented players in this league, but go look at the standings this morning. And if you look at the top, the 3-0 teams and the 2-1 teams, almost always they have an identity. You kind of know what they are and what they stand for. Eberflus, head coach of the Bears, what were they? They weren't even good on defense all the time. Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins, they're fast. You never ask that with the Lions and Dan Campbell.